Hello, and today we are going to be looking at a wheel arch cutter for your Lexan body shells. I've been asked to do a quick review on this to see how this works and how it's put together. And first impressions are it's very well made. We have our blade on here, which is adjustable, so that depth can be made to go up or down. You can also move the blade backwards and forwards, and you can move it in and out, which we're going to look at in more detail shortly. The mechanism is bull raced on each corner, so you get a nice smooth turning action on it. And then underneath the actual device itself, as I will show you as well, it is also bull raced under here as well, so you get a lovely smooth action. Now I have already set the depth of my blade, so as you can see it's just starting to touch the edge, so that might be a little bit further than it needs to be, but we'll see how we go with this. And then we're going to look at setting the maximum length of this and how I want to set this up to cut my first wheel arch on a Lexan body shell. Just to explore this a little bit further, you can see that there's 3 retaining screws here for the blade. These are held in by 2.5mm bolts, so you need a 2.5 driver for those, and you'll also need a 3mm driver for the ball race points on here as well. These are also, there's a grooved path in here for the blade, so the blade stays nicely intact and won't be forced left or right by putting pressure on there, so you can tighten these clamp down quite nicely and there's no movement on the blade whatsoever. The base features a M5 series bolt, so what you're going to need to do is once you've mounted up your shell and marked the axle points on it, you're going to need to remount a 5mm hole, and this will then slide through the Lexan, which we'll cover a little bit further shortly. First off, I want to set the blade width now for how far I want my cut. So I've got one of my wheels here that we could draw around, but if I just check the maximum diameter on that, which is going to come in at around 65mm. Now I want to go a bit further with my cut, so I'm going to push mine out to, so we've got a little bit of freedom there, so I'll go into 68mm there. That's how wide I'm going to make my wheel arch on this cut. So the way to do this is I've got 68, so we're just going to halve that down to 34mm. Get that as close as we can. I mean, you can allow a little bit in the wheel arch, it's all personal preference. I like to allow a little bit just if the arch or the body takes contact in a corner, it's not as likely to press in and press against the wheels if you go for that really tight fit. And now I'm just going to lock that in place there. Now I'm going to take my blade and just check the distance between there. So I've got, that's the middle there, and then the blade can afford to come out just a little bit further there. So I'll read that on the inside of the bearing there to there, so we've got a little bit of movement. So in order to do that, we're going to take our 2.5mm driver and insert that into the screw at the top of the blade stay. So as you see as I undo this, that this mechanism will then, a little bit more, the mechanism is then free to slide forwards or backwards as you see fit. So hopefully I want to get to around the measurement I'm looking for. You'll also notice, not quite so easy to see, there is a recessed area here underneath where the blade slide moves, so when you tighten that down this will recess back into there, so you won't see this side to side movement on it because I've just loosened it off and it's come away from that. So if I just press that back down, you can now see that that is staying in this channel here, so it should move backwards and forwards freely. So I've locked this in so I couldn't actually knock this. I'm just going to check my measurement again now for the middle of the bearing, so I'm nearly there. I'm just going to slide that out a little bit further, just being careful not to stab myself at the same time. I mean, you can fit the blade afterwards if you want, because you can see the groove in here where the blade sits, so you could always measure directly from there to there and then fit the blade afterwards. The blade is at your choice, so I'm going to say that's about exactly where I want it to be. So I'm just going to turn this back over again, just going to hold it with my thumb just so it doesn't slide while I'm tightening it back in. And then we're just going to tighten that back up with the 2.5mm driver. Just check that that's a nice fit. There's no slop and movement in there. And then we're going to double check our measurement again. Measure twice, cut once, and that's bang on where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do now is just clear all this away, and then we'll bring in the body shell and do the cut. Just move all our tools out of the way. Nice clear board. And then we're going to bring in our body shell. So here's one wheel arch that we've already cut, and then there's one that I've already drilled the 5mm hole onto, and then you can see on the rear ones where I've just done the mark for now, and I will ream those out shortly after we've done this wheel arch. So we take the backing plate and place that through the bottom of the hole, and then we take the cutting part and we attach that to the top, and then we tighten our nut down. And just give it a feel there just to make sure it's free to rotate. I might have the cutting blade a little bit deep there, but there we go. Right, so that's now going to just touch up against the Lexan. So now we're going to do the cut. So we just hold on to the mechanism and then give it a turn. You see it scoring as it goes around the arch. Come off the bottom. We've got a nice score line going all the way around. Now I'm going to go around again, see if we can finish the cut. You can see that's now gone through. And that's created a perfect cut line all the way around. Now you can just go ahead and just gently, very gently, go around the outside. Just pulling that inwards and away from the body just to make sure. Don't pull it up and towards it so you don't tear the body. And there we go. We have one lovely, perfectly cut wheel arch to match the other one we did on the other side of the car. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of them, and then I'll show you what it looks like mounted up on the car. And here we have the body shell all mounted up with our lovely arches front. That's the rear of the car, that is the front of the car, and my gap measurement fork gave me the same push I need in the middle to stop any tucking. Like everything though, when you do cut it, I would suggest going around the body shell afterwards with some sandpaper just to take off any of the sharp edges. And there you have it, one body shell with all 4 wheel arches cut out and ready to go, once it's been sprayed of course. Finally, another quick close-up look so we can see the bearings on here that we mentioned earlier. These are the same bearings that you have on your axles for your drive shafts. There's 1, 2, 3 and the one underneath. You can see how freely the mechanism moves there. The knife is of course your choice. And then the 3 retaining bolts there again, and the solid plate which you screw the back into. This has been our review on the wheel arch cutter. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.